I was the highest paid employee of a family business I never applied for. The product was my life and the salary was their survival. As I drove through the quiet streets of Cedar Creek, the last of the autumn sun bled out of the sky, leaving a bruised purple twilight. The air had that sharp Michigan bite to it, the kind that doesn't just promise winter, it warns of one that devours. On the passenger seat sat a small square cake box, a $20 circle of vanilla and buttercream I bought for myself. Because deep down where hope used to live, I already knew no one else would. Today was my 28th birthday. The moment I stepped inside, the cold came with me. The house always smelled faintly of neglect, a scent my mother, Brenda, tried to mask with cheap pine-scented air fresheners. It was a metaphor for our lives. Rot covered in perfume. Dinner was already on the table, a gray slab of meatloaf, its steam long vanished. My father, Marcus, sat at the head like a king on a cardboard throne, sipping whiskey. My mother fidgeted with her napkin, her silence a well-practiced co-conspirator.
No greeting.
No happy birthday. Just the heavy quiet of a room rehearsing its lines. This wasn't awkwardness. It was stagecraft. I wasn't their daughter, I was a pension plan with a pulse. And tonight I could feel the paperwork being shredded. I sat down. The worn vinyl chair groaned beneath me. The only sounds were clinking forks and the distant tick of the grandfather clock, each second dragging us closer to something unnamed. I pushed cold mashed potatoes across my plate, hunger long gone. Then a new sound. The deliberate click of my father's fork on ceramic. Not angry, just final. Like a judge setting down his gavel before execution. He leaned back, eyes sharp. "So," he said, deceptively mild. The graphic designer. Still playing with colors for a living. I met his stare. "It pays the rent, Marcus. And your car insurance." My mother flinched. "Now, Marcus," she murmured, but her eyes fled from mine. A betrayal so quiet it echoed louder than screams. He ignored her. Leaned in. A cruel smirk. Voice lowered like a blade. "We need to talk about your contribution around here, Elara. Or rather, your staggering lack of it." His words hung in the air like the scent of old smoke, clinging, choking. "Lack of contribution?" I repeated, voice steady. Too quiet to be safe. I took a breath, not for calm but for clarity. The facts lined up in my mind like bullets. "Let's see," I said, ticking them off without ceremony. "The $700 for your truck's transmission. Your ad-free streaming because God forbid you endure a commercial. Mom's thyroid meds which my insurance covers. And the weekly grocery delivery because your back's too sore." Right. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I laid the truth down like receipts on a courtroom table. Marcus laughed, short, mean. "That's called paying your share. Barely covers your room and board, princess." Princess. A word that once meant bedtime stories, now twisted into shackles. I realized then. This wasn't ignorance. It was strategy. Guilt dressed as love. Then my mother joined the farce, her voice trembling with trained fragility. "Oh honey, don't take it the wrong way," she whispered, eyes glassy with rehearsed tears. "We're just worried. We think it's time you learned real responsibility. This is for your own good." I stared at her hand reaching across the table, pausing inches from mine. A gesture that used to mean comfort now meant compliance. Responsibility. I had been the only adult in this house for a decade. But I didn't say it. I just saw them clearly for the first time. Two leeches mistaking me for their host. Marcus leaned back satisfied. "Your bags are packed. By the front door." The words hit like ice water. Packed. Not spur of the moment. This was planned. Calculated. My birthday was not a celebration, it was a deadline. I looked at my mother, searching for a flicker of doubt. Love. Anything. Nothing. Only empty tears and cowardice. Marcus checked the clock. "You're 28. A milestone," he said, smiling. "Perfect day for a fresh start. Somewhere else." He nodded toward the door with royal finality. "Tonight." The floor didn't give way. It vanished. But my face stayed blank.
No tears. No pleading.
I stood, chair scraping back loud against the silence. Looked at both of them, one smug, one shriveled. And I nodded. It wasn't just agreement. It was a verdict. The sound of a soul closing a door that would never open again. I turned. I walked out, without looking back. I walked up the stairs, each step a quiet rebellion. My bedroom door clicked shut behind me, and in that sudden privacy the mask didn't crumble. It calcified, hardened into something colder. My eyes locked onto the beige suitcases by the door, packed by my mother's own hands. Her final act of poisoned grace. I ran my fingers along the cheap plastic handle, still warm, as if she had just finished, as if they had stood behind the door, waiting for the curtain to fall on their little performance.
No tears.
Tears were a luxury, a currency I had spent long ago, on scraped knees and broken promises. What remained was a terrifying clarity, cold and sharp as obsidian. I moved like a ghost, watching myself gather the remnants of a life they had deemed disposable. I picked up a thick wool sweater, the one I bought for a hiking trip to the Rockies, a trip that never happened. A shard of memory cut through me. My father's voice on the phone, syrupy with false panic. The property taxes, Elara. They've been reassessed. We're short 1,000. Trip cancelled. Taxes paid. I folded the sweater into my backpack. It was mine. From a small wooden box, I pulled a tarnished silver locket. The last piece of my grandmother I had left. I saw myself again in that sterile pawn shop last winter, hand trembling as I slid it across the counter. Marcus had lost too much on online poker. Rent was late, but I pulled it back at the last second. Couldn't let go. Now I clasped it around my neck. Not jewelry. A shield. A relic of the girl I was before I became their solution. They hadn't just discarded a daughter. They amputated their own lifeline. Unaware I was the heart that kept their decaying body alive. My gaze drifted downstairs, to the kitchen counter where I'd left the birthday cake. A sad little circle of hope I had no business believing in. I didn't need to see it to know what it was. A monument to one-sided love. I sat on the edge of my bed, and in that stillness the clarity ignited. It burned through the grief, the disbelief, the decades of quiet resentment. What remained was a single cold thought. They had taught me responsibility, hadn't they? Paying their bills, managing their accounts, reading the fine print they never bothered with. They had trained me for this very moment, and never saw it coming. I reached under the bed. Fingers brushed cold metal, my laptop. I pulled it onto my lap. Its weight was comforting, like a loaded weapon. They wanted a fresh start.
Fine.
A fresh start demands a clean severance. This wasn't a tragedy anymore. It was an audit. And I was the auditor. The glow of my laptop was the only light in the room, casting long flickering shadows on the walls. My face, frozen in a calm more dangerous than fury. My fingers moved like a surgeon's, not sketching designs but dissecting dependence. First, the rent, automatically withdrawn from my checking account each month, sent to the landlord. My name on the lease. 3 years ago their credit was a wreck, so I signed it. I opened my banking app, found the recurring transfer. Click. Are you sure you want to cancel this transfer? A hollow laugh twitched at my lips. Yes, I was sure. Click. Gone. Next, utilities. The invisible comforts, heat, light, hot water. Things they never thought twice about. The electric account? In my name. I typed in the password. Clicked cancel service. Reason for cancellation? 2 words, moving out. Gas bill. Water bill. Same drill. Click. Cancelled. Click. Gone. Then, indulgences masquerading as necessities. The premium cable bundle with every movie channel. The high-speed internet my father used to rage online. My mother used to escape reality in endless binge watches. All under my name. All funded by sleepless nights grinding out deadlines. This time I didn't just cancel. I entered the provider's chat and claimed my account had been compromised, triggering a full freeze and security lock. It was petty. It was brilliant. It would take them weeks, maybe longer, to untangle the mess. Auto insurance was next. 1 policy, 3 vehicles. My modest sedan, their gas guzzlers. I could still hear my mother's syrupy tone. It's so much cheaper bundled, sweetie. You're so good with money. Yes. And smart enough to click remove vehicle. Their truck? Gone. Her rusted sedan? Gone. Safety net? Severed. And then the masterstroke. The joint family emergency savings account. Her idea. Just in case, she said. Funded by me. Spent by them. Golf clubs, new iPad, never an emergency in sight. I logged in. The balance, of course, was lower than expected. I didn't transfer the money. That would have been too clean. Instead, I reported the debit card as stolen. I changed the password. Security questions. Two-factor authentication. Now the account was a vault. And they? Locked out. No key.
No backdoor.
When the final click echoed, I closed the laptop. The sound felt ceremonial.
No ray.
No relief. Just emptiness. But not the aching kind. This emptiness was precise. Sharp. Like air after a lightning strike. Everything charred but finally quiet. They wanted me to start over. So I did. Not only did I erase myself from their ledger, I deleted the entire book. The next morning, I woke to the unfamiliar scent of coffee and the quiet hum of a city waking up. I was on the couch in Jenna's apartment, a threadbare quilt pulled up to my chin. For a single blissful second, I forgot. Then my phone, charging on the end table, began to vibrate. A low, angry buzz that promised the chaos was just beginning. I let it go to voicemail. Then it buzzed again. And again. A string of missed calls from my mother, my father, and a number I didn't recognize. I stared at the screen, a cold knot tightening in my stomach. It wasn't guilt. It was the primal conditioned response of a child bracing for a parent's rage. Jenna walked in, holding out a steaming mug. Her expression was calm, her eyes knowing. They found out, she stated, not asked. I nodded, my throat too tight to speak. I finally tapped on a voicemail from my mother. Her voice, no longer fragile but high-pitched with manufactured panic, filled the room. Elara, honey, call me. The lights are out, the card isn't working at the gas station. I don't understand what's happening. Are you okay? I'm so worried. The performance was almost laughable. Worried about me? Or worried about her suddenly dysfunctional kingdom? The next message was a text from my father.
No pretense.
Just pure distilled rage. You think this is funny? You have 5 minutes to turn everything back on before you regret the day you were born. I read the words and felt nothing. The threat was hollow. He had already done his worst. Jenna took a slow sip of her coffee. The two classic tactics of the manipulator, she said, her voice even. One plays the frantic victim. The other plays the raging tyrant. They're trying to see which one will make you break first. She looked at me, her gaze steady. Don't let them. Just then another text came through. This one was from my cousin Tyler. He was the only one in the family who ever called it like it was. The message was blunt, just his style. Aunt Brenda is calling everyone, crying about a power outage. Uncle Marcus is on his porch yelling at a squirrel. What did you do? I let out a short, humorless laugh. I showed the text to Jenna. She smirked. Sounds like the audit is proceeding as scheduled. Her calmness was an anchor. She didn't coddle me. She didn't tell me I was wrong. She simply stood beside me, a silent witness to the storm, reinforcing the foundation I was trying to build under my own 2 feet. She saw the chaos for what it was, not a tragedy I had caused, but a consequence they had earned. I silenced my phone and set it face down. The buzzing stopped, but I knew the quiet wouldn't last. This was just the first wave. The quiet lasted exactly 4 hours, long enough for me to take a shower, borrow some of Jenna's clothes, and pretend to be a normal person. Then Jenna's phone lit up. It was a notification from the Cedar Creek Community Forum on Facebook. Her brows raised slightly. She handed the phone to me without a word. There it was, a performance for the digital masses. My father had posted a lengthy, rambling paragraph with a grainy photo of him and my mother looking pitiful. A plea for prayers, it began. Our family is facing unthinkable hardship. Our only daughter, Elara, whom we've loved and sacrificed for, has turned her back on us in our old age. With no warning, she cut off our power, our access, our lives. We are left in darkness, no heat, no food, no hope. We don't know what we did to deserve this cruelty. In today's world of entitlement, perhaps gratitude is extinct. Please pray for us. And for her. The screen blurred for a second, not from tears but from disbelief. The audacity of the lie stole my breath. In his story, he was the wounded patriarch. I was the monster. Cold. Calculated. Ungrateful. The comments section was already on fire. So sorry, Marcus. Sending hugs and prayers. These modern kids have no soul. Disgusting. But cracks began to show. Isn't Elara the one working 2 jobs? A neighbor asked. Didn't he just buy a new Ram truck last month? Someone else chimed in. If they're broke, who's paying for their lake house? The tide was hesitant but turning. I stared at the screen as the narrative wavered. Jenna took the phone gently from my hands. They're writing your story, she said quietly. Are you really going to let them hold the pen? What do? I whispered. Fight them in the comments? That'll only make it worse. No, she said firmly. She walked to her shelf and pulled down a small worn book on mindfulness. She didn't open it, just held it like a stone. You don't fight fire with fire. That's what they want. The dirtier it gets, the more comfortable they are. They've lived in the mud for decades. She paused. Her tone shifted. Elara, what do you really want? If you post the receipts, if you prove them wrong, will it heal anything? That stopped me. She wasn't questioning the facts. She was questioning the cost of my need to be right. Would victory satisfy me? Or just keep me tethered to people who'd never admit defeat? I looked at Jenna, still grounded, fierce in her quiet way. Then I looked at the screen again, at strangers calling me a disgrace. The anger in me didn't boil. It focused. I walked over to my bag, pulled out my laptop, and opened a folder labeled simply, Insurance. I didn't need to scream. I didn't need to explain. I just needed to show. My laptop was open. Blank screen. White like snow. Jenna sat across from me at her kitchen table, silent but solid. She didn't give advice. She just stayed. Held the silence like a shield. The folder in front of me was called Insurance. A private joke. But there was nothing funny about it now. It was my archive, my fire escape, in case the emotional house ever burned down. It was burning now. My fingers were still. Not frozen, focused. I wasn't writing a rant. I wasn't screaming. They'd love that. Rage was their currency. Mine was paper. Receipts. Records. Reality. I clicked New Post on the Cedar Creek Community Forum and started typing. My voice? Sharp. Dry. Surgical. Good morning. My name is Elara. My father, Marcus, made a post yesterday that included several factual errors. For transparency, I feel it's important the community has the full context. I didn't call him a liar. I didn't call him abusive. I didn't have to. Each sentence was a scalpel sliding through the illusion without spilling emotion. Then came the exhibits. Exhibit A. A scanned lease agreement. My name Solesi. Theirs? Not there. Exhibit B. Redacted bank statements showing $1,800 monthly auto payments, years of rent in my name. Exhibit C. Utility bills. Electric, gas, water. All addressed to me. All paid by me. Exhibit D. My auto insurance policy. Covers 3 cars. Mine, his truck, her sedan. All under my name. Exhibit a screenshot. A text from 6 weeks ago. Truck payment is due Friday. Don't forget. No please. No thank you. Just expectation. Entitlement plain and raw. Then came my final paragraph. I never asked for gratitude. Just respect. On my 28th birthday I was told to leave. So I did. The services they claim were cut off were mine. Paid from my salary. When I left, those payments stopped. I did not abandon my family. I just stopped funding them. I hovered over the post button. Looked at Jenna. She gave one quiet nod. That was all I needed. The darkness they're experiencing, I typed, is not something I inflicted. It's the natural state of a home no longer powered by my labor. I wish them well. Click.
No screaming.
No fight. Just one cold, precise release of truth. For a minute after I posted, nothing happened. Just the still hum of my laptop fan and the weight of silence. It was the kind of silence that sits in your chest like a held breath before a plunge. Then my screen blinked. 1 like. 3 more. Then a ping. Sarah from high school commented on your post. My pulse kicked. I clicked. Elara. I had no idea. I'm so sorry for what I said on your dad's post. I should have known better. The first drop in a storm. Then the downpour came. The comments exploded. Not by the dozen, by the hundred. Some short, some furious. Some like confessions. Some like apologies. I always wondered why she was the one mowing the lawn while Marcus stood there smoking. Damn. That Ram truck he brags about. Her name's on the policy. Elara, we see you now. We're sorry we didn't sooner. The community didn't just believe me. They turned. Not with torches and pitchforks, but with the precise sting of truth in digital form. One neighbor wrote, "I've seen that girl shovel snow alone at 6 a.m. for years while her dad watched TV. Makes me sick." Another, "So this freeloader actually funded their lifestyle? That's rich." Then came the final fracture. My father tried to reply. In all caps. Full of typos. Raging. "She's lying. Manipulating you. She's sick in the head." And someone answered instantly, "Dude, she posted your rent receipts. Get help." A few minutes later, his original post disappeared. Deleted. Gone. A digital surrender flag. He had nothing left but silence. Then the private message. "My mother. Elara, take it down. Please. The phone won't stop ringing." Mrs. Henderson stared at me through the window. "You're ruining everything. You're ruining us." Ruining them? I blinked. Laughed quietly. Not with joy but disbelief. I didn't ruin them. I just stopped protecting them from the truth. They built the house of lies. I just opened the blinds. I read her message twice. Felt a flicker, maybe sadness. Or memory. But it was brief. Cold clarity returned. I didn't reply. Didn't block her. Just clicked archive. Gone. That too was a kind of justice. Jenna looked up. "How do you feel?" I paused. Thought. "Still," I said. Because it was true. The internet was on fire, but inside I was finally quiet. I stood, walked to the window. Cedar Creek twinkled in the dark. Behind me, notifications kept coming in, likes, comments, applause, noise. But the noise didn't matter. They had tried to brand me a villain. Tried to shrink me. Rewrite my name. And I had let them until now. I didn't just post a rebuttal. I reclaimed my story. And standing there for the first time in years, I remembered what it felt like to belong fully to myself. Not out of anger. Not to prove a point. Just because I could. The fallout from the Facebook post was swift and brutal. For 2 days my phone was silent. Not the anxious kind of silence from before, but a new kind, one born from their retreat. On the third day, a certified letter arrived at Jenna's apartment. My name was printed on it in cold, bureaucratic font. My heart didn't race. It just steadied. It wasn't a lawsuit. Jenna, ever calm, scanned the document with the trained eye of a paralegal. It was a formal mediation request, sent by a small-town lawyer whose office likely doubled as a tax prep shack. A last-ditch effort to pull me into a room and reclaim control, under the guise of civility. "It's a scare tactic," Jenna said. "But weirdly, it's also a gift. A chance to end this formally on your terms." And so I found myself in a bland, suffocating conference room that smelled like stale paper and burnt coffee. The walls were corporate beige, the color of indifference. I sat on one side of the polished table, Jenna beside me. Across sat Marcus and Brenda, flanking a nervous young man pretending to be their lawyer. They looked deflated. Outside the safety of their curated home, under harsh fluorescent lighting, they were no longer powerful. Marcus's face was blotchy and tight. Brenda clung to a tissue like a lifeline, mascara smudged, voice already trembling. The show had resumed, but the audience had dwindled to 4. Their lawyer cleared his throat and launched into a monologue about defamation, emotional trauma, and familial duties. A storm of legalese, all thunder, no lightning. Jenna let him speak for 5 uninterrupted minutes. Then she calmly slid a thick manila folder onto the table. The tab read "Insurance," written in my sharpest scrawl. She didn't open it. She didn't need to. It was a silent bomb waiting. The lawyer's eyes twitched toward it. His posture faltered. Just for a second, but enough. He realized he was holding a losing hand. Still, he stumbled through his lines. That's when Marcus exploded. "She's lying," he barked, fingers shaking as he jabbed it at me. "She twisted everything. Made us out to be monsters." The mediator, a weary woman in her 60s, finally intervened. Her tone was gentle but unshakable. Mr. Collins, the evidence circulating online appears to be quite factual. Shall we talk about resolution? That word resolution hung in the air like smoke after a fire. It was the moment my father realized the war was no longer winnable. His face didn't twist in rage. It crumpled in something worse. Impotence. Brenda's tears came freely now, not from guilt, but from the unbearable weight of exposure. The storm hadn't just broken. It had emptied itself dry. The mediator turned her weary eyes to me. Miss Collins, she said, gentler now, your parents' claim holds no legal merit. The evidence is conclusive. So what do you want? What did I want? A year ago, I'd have wanted them humiliated. 6 months ago, I'd have wanted revenge. Even last week, I might have wanted repayment for every unpaid debt, every sleepless night, every time they made me feel small in a house I paid for. They stared at me across the table. My father's glare was poison. My mother's tears were theater. They expected fury. They expected demands. They expected war. I glanced at Jenna. She gave me the faintest nod, not to prompt but to affirm. That question she asked days ago whispered again. Will it heal anything? I inhaled. My voice came out clear, low, unwavering. I want nothing from them. The room frozen. The lawyer blinked. Marcus stiffened. I didn't come here for an apology, I continued, because I know it would be another lie. I didn't come here to see them squirm. I've learned that joy built on someone else's ruin is hollow. I paused. Let the silence breathe. Holding on to this anger. It's like drinking poison and expecting them to die. I kept drinking, hoping it would reach them. It never did. I looked directly at them, really looked, and found nothing.
No hay. No H.
Just stillness. Today, I'm putting the glass down. They flinched. Not because of what I said, but because it was over. The script they clung to was done. There was no act left to play. This isn't forgiveness. It's release. Not for you, for me. I deserve peace. And you can't take that from me anymore. For the first time, Marcus didn't yell. He didn't bargain. He didn't even look at me. His power had no place here. A simple document was drafted. No contact, no public statements, clean legal severance. When I signed the last line, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt clear. A thread that had bound me for years snapped, soft and final. We stood. Jenna's hand found my shoulder. I didn't glance back. Outside, the sun cut through the clouds. Sharp, bright, honest. I closed my eyes and let it hit me full on. I walked into that room to end a war. I walked out with the war no longer inside me. Not because I won, but because I no longer needed to. Months passed. Michigan's brutal winter melted into a tentative spring. The kind where sunlight still feels shy. I found a small apartment downtown, 3rd floor, old brick. The kind where floors creak with every step. Like they remember every story told within them. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. My life was stitched from quiet rituals. Morning coffee brewed by my own hand. Tasted in stillness, not tinged by dread. I watered a single basil plant that leaned toward the light. I sketched for no one but myself. The pages bloomed with things born not from demand, but from desire. Funny how these tiny domestic gestures felt more luxurious than anything I ever paid for my family. One Saturday, as I opened the last box, my fingers brushed plastic. I pulled it out. The cake topper I'd bought for my 28th birthday. A solitary candle still wrapped unopened. I held it in my hand, waiting for it to sting. For the familiar ache to bloom. Nothing. It was just plastic now. No ghost attached. I didn't toss it. I placed it on an empty shelf above my desk. Not as a keepsake. Not as proof. But as a marker.
Kilometer zero.
The point where I stopped fleeing the wreckage and started walking toward myself. From Tyler, I heard things in pieces. They sold the truck. Mom took a cashier job. The house was colder now, in every sense of the word. I didn't gloat. I didn't mourn. It was like reading news about a town I once passed through. Their orbit no longer touched mine. The family I had now was the one I chose. Jenna, who showed up with takeout and laughter. Tyler, who sent dumb memes as check-ins. Even the old lady next door, who nodded each morning like it meant something. Family, I was learning, was built, not inherited. It's chosen, and it chooses back. And for the first time, I chose me. Every morning. Without apology. That evening I sat by the window watching Cedar Creek light up, one soft glow at a time. The air was sharp, clean. For most of my life, I thought peace was something to be earned from others. A reward for compliance. For silence. For being good. But peace was never theirs to give. It had always been mine to build. What happened to my parents wasn't vengeance. It wasn't karma with a dramatic soundtrack. It was simply consequence. The echo of choices finally catching up. The rain that once fell for them. My care, my money, my presence had stopped. They weren't punished. They were just left with the drought. I thought of the girl who once drank poison hoping they'd suffer. I didn't hate her. I mourned her. She tried so hard to be enough in a place where love had conditions. Letting her go was the last mercy I gave myself. This story is mine, but its shape?
Familiar.
We're told family is a sacred debt, that walking away is selfish. But sometimes survival requires distance. Sometimes healing means saying, I am enough even if you never said it first. Have you ever chosen yourself? Even when it meant letting go of what you thought you needed most. So tell your story. Someone out there needs your voice like you needed someone else's once. And if this story felt like home, subscribe, share, stay. Because here, every survival is a signal fire in the dark. I turned from the window, the city humming behind me. And for the first time, I wasn't someone's daughter. I wasn't someone's problem solver. I was simply me. And this time that was more than enough.